Welcome to the podcast. My name is Len Lacroix. I'm a purchasing consultant with Trinity Ministries, which I've been for 11 years now, and for 4 years prior to that with a different company. Trinity Ministries is a free purchasing service whose purpose is to serve you by helping you save money. We primarily help ministries and camps, but also many others. Our lifetime membership is always free, as well as all our services. There's also no obligation for our members to purchase anything or use any of our services. And we have almost 4,000 members across all 50 states now. Some of them are saving thousands of dollars per year, while others are saving tens of thousands of dollars per year. And none of them pay a single penny for that. We've even had a couple save over $100,000 a year. Now, while we have 50 to 70 non-food supplier agreements such as Staples, Lowe's Home Improvement, Grainger, T-Mobile, FedEx, 2 different propane suppliers, and more, food service is typically the number one area where we can help many of our members, such as camps. The overall savings on food service, when we do price comparisons, is in the 10 to 20% range, although we have seen overall savings in the 20 to over 30% range and as high as 35% one time. Trinity's been affiliated with HPSI for 20 years, and HPSI has agreements with multiple food service distributors, including Cisco, U.S. Foods, Gordon Food Service, Benny Keith, Performance Food Group, and quite a few more. HPSI has been in business for 60 years now and began in 1964 with just 4 hospitals that wanted to save money by combining their cumulative buying power to use that as leverage to get their pricing lower on their medical supplies and paper supplies. And that worked so well for them that they expanded that to other categories of purchasing. Eventually they got an agreement in place with Cisco at that time, and more organizations kept on joining this group, wanting to be a part of this so that they could enjoy the advantageous pricing structures that had been negotiated by this group. And now, today, there are over 18,000 organizations in this group, known as HPSI, and the annual buying power is over $16 billion per year. So that's a little bit more than your typical organization would have on their own. Even a large hospital chain, for example, would not typically have that much buying power. Many of the organizations that are in this group, known as HPSI, include thousands of hospitals and other healthcare facilities. There's also many educational institutions like universities and K through 12s. And then there are also hospitality businesses. And Trinity Ministries, we focus on the ministries and camps mainly, but we also help others as well, including secular organizations. Now, the agreements that are in place with our food service distributor partners have fixed margins that apply to the distributor's entire inventories, except for capital equipment, which is the one category of item type that's not under the margin schedule. But everything else, food and non-food, is under the margin schedule. And those margins are locked in place. And we also have preferred pricing with manufacturers on over 400 brands, covering thousands of items. Plus, these vendors, meaning the food service distributors, pay incentives to our members. And then besides that, there are manufacturer rebates as well. So there are multiple ways that we save our members money. It's a strong program that's completely free. If we're not already serving you on our program as one of our members, please reach out to me. I'd be glad to help you save money. And today I'm joined by my friend Jim Dumont, who is one of our members that has been using our program for years at various organizations that he has either owned or worked for. And he started working in the food service industry all the way back in 1984, graduated from Johnson & Wales University in 1989. Jim has worked both front and back of the house in the food service industry. He's managed several restaurants, including retail bake shops, casual dining, and fine dining. He owned and operated an artisan bread bakery for more than 12 years and a catering business for 2 years. He spent the past 8 years directing the food service at Christian schools and is currently serving as food service director at Potomac Park Retreat and Conference Center in West Virginia. Jim, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you join me today.
Thank you for having me, Len. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Jim, aside from the often substantial savings that the Trinity program offers through advantageous pricing structures, as I was saying, one of the other most important things that someone in charge of food service can do to save money is to avoid waste, and this involves using more efficient ordering and use of their current inventory. Could you share with our listeners what you've learned over the years in this area?
Love to, Len.
Go ahead.
As you said, the inventory control is paramount in saving money. And that, as you mentioned, begins with the ordering process.
Yeah.
You want to order sufficient for your need, but not over. You want to consider that inventory that sits is money, and inventory that anything that's wasted is lost money. So from the point of ordering to receiving and rotating stock, whether it be dry goods or refrigerated items or frozen items, you want to rotate so that you're using the older product before newer product, and considering expiration or use by dates as well. So the inventory process, before we do anything production-wise, is paramount. And then once we've taken care of the product, once we've ordered it and got it in-house, then production is the next thing. We want to schedule production. It's not glamorous, but it's necessary to plan for how much product we're going to utilize and be sure that we can use what we have in the time that we need to, as well have a plan for using, let's say, leftover product or product that isn't used in the initial production. It's really important to have a plan for secondary uses of product. If we purchase, let's say, fresh produce, and we're using it for a salad bar, or we're using it for a function or a meal, and then we have product left over, it's good to have recipes, good to have formulas, but good to have a plan in place to utilize those things in another capacity. But if it's produce, use it for soup, use it for whatever.
Yeah.
We're not talking about specific products here, so it's difficult to say. But definitely to have a secondary plan is good, so that if we order what we don't have control over is case size. We have to order enough cases to meet our need, and oftentimes there's going to be you want product left over. You want to have more than what you need. You don't want to run out. And then so it's important to have a plan going forward with that product so we don't lose it. And unfortunately, one thing that we have to consider as well is pilferage, security. We want to, even here in this environment, we haven't had any issues or anything, but we have a lock on our refrigerator, and our dry storage is locked as well. At one point, and I don't remember exactly the context, but at one point, I do recall reading that the number one reason for food service establishments going out of business was actually employee theft. That was a startling thing to me. I wish I could remember where I saw that. I don't believe that's true today, but at the time, that was what was presented.
That's pretty amazing. The number one reason for food service organizations to go out of business is because of employee theft. And would it be in the food service?
I wouldn't think that was true today. COVID itself put out 17% of restaurants went out of business due to COVID. I wouldn't say
there's other things that take first place
today,
now.
But this was, yes.
But locking it up is still very wise and I think very applicable in our current environment. So thank you for sharing that. That's important. What else can you share with us?
It's something as simple as equipment maintenance, making sure that your equipment that you're storing your food in, that you're preparing your food with, is well maintained. If you don't take care of your refrigerators, your freezers, your ovens, then you can lose product along the production process or storage and production process. unfortunately, sometimes you have no control over these things. Things break down. I had friends in North Carolina that owned a restaurant, and they came in one morning to a 70-degree walk-in cooler and lost everything in there.
Wow.
Yeah, they did have insurance, but still, we can't prevent all loss, but certainly by regular maintenance and inspection, make sure that the things that we use to cook with, the things we use to store our food with, good repair and operating the way they should be.
Right. Very good. Do you have any other examples that you could give us on how people in their ordering could be more cost-effective?
Sure, absolutely. Flexibility and diligence. We do diligence. When we order, when we spoke on another occasion, I mentioned one particular instance where we purchased 15 dozen shell eggs. We use them for baking. We use them for allergen. We buy a scrambled egg product, but we have oftentimes people allergic to milk. It has milk in it, so we use those shell eggs to make scrambled eggs sometimes. Anyway, it's a product that we use, and just one time I went to order these eggs, and the price was outrageous, $96 for 15 dozen eggs. I scrolled down through the options and found a product, exact same specifications, 15 dozen large eggs, shell eggs, and it was $54 a case. So $42 I saved on one case. Yeah, and that's a dramatic example. However, there are oftentimes, if we're not locked into a brand, or we're not locked into for some things we want to be. For some things I am. I really like a product. Right. I want to stay with that product. But just to pull the app up and click on the first thing we come to, we do ourselves a disservice. If we will just scroll and look, comparison shop, if you will, and we can find similar products to the ones that we have used in the past, or things definitely with comparable specs. We can purchase those things and oftentimes save money from invoice to invoice.
And if I could just add to that, on our program, for those who are using the Trinity HPSI program with whatever distributor they're using on our program, as I said, we have multiple ways that we save folks money. There's the fixed profit margins, which the distributors have agreed to, and that applies to everything in the inventory except for capital equipment. But then there's these price agreements with the manufacturers, which are on thousands of items and over 400 brands. And so sometimes people wonder, is the item that I'm getting is it on the program or not? The fact is, every item in the vendor's inventory is, unless you're talking about capital equipment. So everything food and non-food is on the program, meaning underneath the margin schedule. Whether or not it has a price agreement with the manufacturer, that depends. So that's something that you can find out when you look up the item. It'll have some kind of an indication as to whether it's on whether it has a price agreement with the manufacturer. But the most important thing is that whatever item you select is one that has the best price you can get for the best value, so that it meets your quality standards. So to put that in a practical sense, when someone is going to place an order, the easiest thing to do is use, for example, your order guide and order the things that you typically always order. But it would help once in a while to stop and, before ordering something, especially a high volume item that you order a lot of, one of the things that you spend the most on each year, maybe you want your top 50 or top 100 items, like the eggs, for example, which is probably for most people one of their top 50 or 100 items, or something else like that. And before ordering it, just stop and do a search, and then scroll down and look through the different prices and find out if there's anything with a better price. And then if there is, and it meets your quality standards, order that one instead. And things like that can save you a lot of money, even if it's not a huge dollar amount of savings, like the example you gave, which was pretty phenomenal. Even a several dollar savings on something that you spend the most on each year. If it's, let's say you spend $10,000 or $20,000 a year on that type of item, on that specific item number, then any kind of savings would help a lot to bring down your total spend each year. So that's just another suggestion that we could make, right, to help people to be more cost efficient.
Absolutely. I understand the time constraints. In these days, a food service director is often involved in production, as I am. The ordering isn't something that we can commit an awful lot of time to. However, just to scroll down a few line items and find savings like that translates into quite a bit of money. Even if you only have 30 minutes or an hour to do an order, you can save a substantial amount of money just by taking that extra couple seconds. Yes.
Were there any other examples that you wanted to share that you felt could illustrate the point that you're making? Or any other points that you've made?
There's one other way that I've found to save a considerable amount of money, and it's not for everybody. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with person's qualifications, capabilities in the kitchen, or their staff, and that is to make as many things from scratch as we possibly can. Convenience items are so expensive. Many times, and I'll use one product as an example. We make our own meatballs. That can be tedious. When you have hundreds of people to feed, it can be tedious to make your own meatballs. However, when you look at the pricing on prepared meatballs, you're not going to get a price per pound. You're going to get a price per ounce. And extend that out and then look at what it costs for ground beef by the pound in a chub, and then whatever you're seasoning those things, the meatballs with. The savings is significant. It's very significant. So as much as is possible, that is very helpful in saving money. And we do quite a bit of that here. Mm-hmm. A lot of that has to do with background and the environment we're in here. That's the equipment that we have. It's possible for us to do. So we can do that. I understand that it's not possible for everybody, but that is one.
Yeah, they may not have the staff or the time to do that, but if they do, that can save them a lot of money by preparing things, like you just said, so making things from scratch. I think that everything that you've just shared, if people would take and apply these things and try to implement these things in their environment, I think that they would find that to be very helpful in reducing their costs. So I want to thank you very much, Jim, for sharing those insights and suggestions. And I think to the extent that people would put them into practice, they'll probably see some great results from that. So I want to thank you very much, Jim, for taking your time to come on here today on the podcast and share that. And
thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me. I'd like to help if we can.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And so I'm going to wrap this up here and just thank folks for listening to the podcast. And if they would like to find out more about Trinity, I would love to speak with them further about it and tell them how we could save them money through our program as well. And there'll be information on how they can reach me to talk about that. So that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great rest of the day.